Good afternoon, City of Eugene, people who are attempting to log in and join the April 16th, 2025 City Council work session. This is Mayor Karen Knutson. I'm just sharing that we're experiencing some technical difficulties in accessing our meeting software and being able to start this scheduled City Council work session. So it will be, we hope, just a couple of more minutes until we're able to start. And thank you for your patience. Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to the April 26, 2025 City Council work session. Just want to note we've been experiencing some technical difficulties in starting this meeting as planned at noon, and thank you to staff for all of the work over this last 45 minutes. That's due to a technical issue outside of the city's control that looks like a global outage with our remote meeting software. With the remaining time that we have available, just over 30 minutes, it does not look like we'll get to both items on our agenda, but we will reschedule the items that we don't get to today. Thank you for those who are joining us today in this virtual meeting format. Hopefully everyone is now able to access this meeting. There is no opportunity for public comment, but people can watch the live stream from our website and broadcast on Comcast 21, Channel 21, or by calling into one of the phone numbers listed on the City of Eugene's website on the public webcasts and meetings materials page. Thank you all again for joining us. And with that, I call the April 16th, 2025 work session of the Eugene City Council to order. I'll now turn to the city manager to introduce our first topic, which is a work session and possible action on a MUPD application for Station House.
Thank you, Mayor, and you're correct. We will reschedule your second item, which is the street repair bond and pavement preservation report. Your first item is regarding the Station House MUPD, and we are pulling you together even with this short timeline to ask for your consideration for a request for the multi-unit property tax exemption for Station House. It's a 124-unit development in the Market District. Dylan is here, so staff's here, and they'll do a short presentation, just kind of introducing you to the project, talk about the MUPD review panel's conclusions and how they're meeting those requirements. We do have a resolution in your packet if you would like to take action today. And with that, I'll just turn it over to Dylan.
Good afternoon, Mayor, councilors. My screen share is turned off. Can I get that power, please? Sorry, I didn't realize just a moment ago. Oh, you've got it. Okay, we're gonna do it this way.
Yeah, it's up.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, let me know when you're ready to scroll down to the next slide, and I am here for you.
Okay, I appreciate it. Good afternoon, Mayor, councilors. The Station House MUPD application proposes a mixed-use development at the corner of 5th Avenue and Oak Street. I know you just saw a MUPD presentation a few weeks ago, and we're on a shortened timeline, so I'll be brief where I can. A lot of this is going to feel familiar. Next slide, please. The site is primarily occupied by a parking lot. It also includes the former Buffalo Exchange retail building, which will be demolished, and the annex or baggage building from the historic Southern Pacific Railroad depot, which will remain. The railroad itself runs right along the north edge of the site. This is a key location in the Market District at the very top of Oak Street. 5th Avenue is a designated Great Street and an important connection between downtown and the riverfront. This location is also featured in the downtown plan in the list of development opportunity areas. Next slide. The project's 124 residential units are built on top of a ground floor that features over 7,000 square feet of commercial or retail space, which makes up most of what's illustrated on the ground floor in this image. It's a 6-story building. If you're counting in these images, it might look like more, but the top floor appears higher because it consists of loft units. Next slide. At the back of the building, a 2-deck parking garage provides 218 parking spaces. This would be the view from the northwest end of the site near the railroad tracks. The bottom floor would be paid parking for customers of the commercial establishments in the building, as well as the surrounding businesses in the Market District, presumably. The upper floor of the garage would be dedicated to residential tenants. Next slide. For the sake of brevity, I'll just say that this is being processed with the standard MUPD process. It's not in the boundary for accelerated MUPD. The project's completed its required meeting with between the applicant and the neighborhood that will host the project. The 30-day public comment period was back this past November and December. We didn't receive any public testimony during that time. At the same time, we sent the project's financial information to the third-party consultant who provides us with independent conclusions about whether or not the project needs a MUPD to be financially feasible. The financial analysis and other materials are then provided to the MUPD review panel, and I will get to their recommendation later in the presentation. Next slide. The upcoming slides summarize how the project proposes to meet the MUPTE public benefits. These are criteria a project must meet to qualify for the tax exemption. Your packet includes information on some substantial updates that the applicant submitted during the evaluation process, including a revised building design and a whole new set of financial information. The summary I'm providing reflects the final details for the application. Next slide. To be brief here, there are several zones and overlays in play with an end result of a minimum density of 20 units per acre from the zoning. For these particular zones, MUPTE doesn't impose any additional requirements, and the project works out to 57 units per acre. Next slide. As part of the application, the developer submitted a local economic impact plan, which estimates the portion of the project's total dollar volume on professional services and construction contracts that will go to firms based in Lane County. They're shooting for 50% here. The applicant estimated that 75% of their contracted costs would be spent locally. They've also committed to meet requirements such as engaging with minority, women, and emerging small business firms about contracting opportunities, and the tax exemption is contingent on their compliance with wage tax and licensing laws. Next slide. MUPTE applicants have two options to meet the moderate income housing contribution criteria. Option one is to pay a fee that goes into a special fund dedicated to supporting moderate income housing, which is defined for MUPTE purposes as housing that's affordable to households making 100% of the area median income. Option two is to set the rents for at least 30% of the project's units at prices affordable to households in that moderate income bracket. In this case, the applicant chose to pay the fee. This would be equal to 10% of the total tax exemption over 10 years, which we estimate to be $914,000. Next slide. The program comes with green building requirements and a few different pathways for projects to show how they're going to meet them. This project will follow the building permit services pathway, which requires the developer to provide an engineered energy model when they apply for building permits. That model must show energy efficiency at least 10% better than baseline energy code. There are also criteria for historic sensitivity in existing housing. The project is adjacent to two historic locales, the Oregon Electric Station and the Southern Pacific Railroad Depot. A review by staff in the planning division concluded that neither historic property would be adversely impacted by the development. Next slide. Potential impacts to those historic properties were also important when we were reviewing the proposed building design and its compliance with the MUPTE design and compatibility criteria. There's information in your packet about how the designs were improved during the MUPTE review process to account for the importance of the site in the overall fabric of downtown and in relation to those historic properties. The design and compatibility criteria span the topics of scale, form, and quality of the building, the mixture of project elements, the relationship to the street and surrounding uses, and parking and circulation. The final project design includes features like brick all along the high ground floor, large storefront windows that bring together the retail spaces with the street environment, balconies, and a big recessed front courtyard. It breaks up the front yard of the building and front plane of the building and creates some outdoor space along the sidewalk. Next slide. In 2023, Council approved an amendment to the Skinner Butte height limitation area that raised the height limit for this site by 30 feet. In short, the developer knew they wanted to build a substantial housing development on this location, and the city worked with them to add flexibility for additional units by allowing for a higher building. The base zoning would have allowed a building of this height no problem, but the Skinner Butte height limitation area imposes additional restrictions. I bring up that context because the review by urban design staff and the review panel both acknowledge that this is a prominent building, it's a prominent location and an important intersection, and it will have a major impact on the experience of that location downtown. Next slide. In their review, urban design staff concluded that the project meets the design and compatibility criteria. The review memo mentions positive attributes like adding activity and lighting along Fifth Avenue and ample bike storage. The review also highlighted how much the building could be improved by additional brick, which the applicant responded to by submitting the current designs with brick all along the ground floor. Next slide. Here's the site plan for the ground floor. Fifth Avenue is the bottom, Railroad is off the top of the screen. The retail spaces shown here in orange define the building's engagement with the street. MUPTE projects can receive a tax exemption for commercial space if council deems those improvements to be integral parts of the design, or if you deem them to be public benefits in their own right. The review panel recommended that the commercial space be granted a tax exemption. for the public benefits it provides by activating an important stretch of one of the designated Great Streets. They discussed whether parking areas associated with commercial uses should qualify as public benefits when they specifically don't serve the primary residential use. Ultimately, they recommended that the first floor of parking not be included in the exemption. Next slide. This is the plan view for the second floor. The residential units start here, and you can see where the ramp on the east side of the building gives access to the second deck of the parking garage, which will be dedicated to residential tenants. For MUPTI purposes, parking for tenants is viewed as a basic accompaniment to the tax-exempt residential use, and the proposed MUPTI resolution would cover this parking area. Next slide. In agreement with the third-party financial consultant, the MUPTI review panel concluded that the project would not be financially feasible without a MUPTI, recommending that the project be approved for a 10-year exemption applying to residential and commercial areas and parking areas that are dedicated to residential tenants. The city manager's recommendation aligns with that. The documents in your packet cover a MUPTI review panel process that took a few twists and turns on the way to their final recommendation. First, the review panel arrived at an initial recommendation based on the information in the application. The applicant then submitted building design revisions and updated financial information for the project. The new financial details focused on important financial factors that have changed considerably since the application was submitted in November, notably including a larger development loan with a higher interest rate and higher overall building costs. The applicant understandably wanted the financial realities of the past few months reflected in analysis of their project. The review panel held an additional meeting to review the new materials, and we brought the financial consultant back for a full analysis. The review panel and the consultant agreed that the changing financial landscape poses additional risk for the project and reduces its overall financial feasibility. In light of the new financial details and the revised design, the panel unanimously voted for a final recommendation to approve a 10-year MUPTI. Next slide. The program's final public benefit requirement is financial need, whether the project could be built without the benefit of the MUPTI. As I've already alluded, the financial consultant, Pacific Northwest Economics, found that the project would not be financially viable and wouldn't likely not be built without the tax exemption. They especially noted that current volatility in the construction industry makes it difficult to predict exactly what financial conditions this project might face in the coming years, but those conditions are unlikely to significantly improve in the near term. Next slide. These are estimates of the projected tax revenue over a 20-year period if the project is completed. The property is currently privately owned and generates about $60,000 in property tax revenue, mostly on the value of the land, and taxes on the land value would continue to be collected and would grow slowly over the course of a MUPTI. The MUPTI is estimated to exempt the completed project from roughly $9.1 million in property tax on the building's value over 10 years. In year 11, when the exemption ends, it's estimated the $68 million project will generate over $1.1 million in property tax per year, and by year 20, property taxes will rise to about $1.5 million. Next slide. Good opportunity for brevity here. The current status of the 1,500 unit cap for the MUPTI program. There are currently 928 units approved for MUPTI, or 62% of that 1,500 unit cap. If this application is approved, we'd reach 1,052 units approved, or 70% of the unit cap. Next slide. You have several options before you. You could approve the MUPTI by adopting the attached resolution. You could approve the MUPTI but modify the conditions of approval, and you could deny the MUPTI and request a resolution be prepared to that effect. With that, thank you, and staff are available for any questions.
Thank you, staff, for that presentation. I will now open the floor to council discussion with a note that will ask for a 2-minute round, staff, to be set, and for council to see if we can move all the way through everyone. But we'll have 2 minutes each, and Councillor Clark, you were first to raise your hand.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to restate something that was just stated, but we often get a lot of emails and a lot of public interaction about our approval or disapproval of a MUPTI. And there's oftentimes a lot of bad information that goes out to people about this program. So just let's be really super clear. This particular piece of dirt gets us $60,000 a year in property taxes as a city. It won't be built without a MUPTI. It absolutely will not be built. And in year 11, it's 1.1 million in property taxes each year that continues to go up from that point. So when the city faces a revenue problem, this investment makes absolute financial sense because it's a simple choice for the city about whether we continue to get $60,000 a year and never any more, or whether or not we offer this break in when the money gets collected so it can be built, so that in years 11 all into the future, it's millions more in property taxes to the city that would not have come otherwise. So just want to make sure that's clear for those people watching this meeting.
Thank you, Councilor Krasinski.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, staff, for the presentation. A couple of very quick questions. You mentioned that the commercial parking would not have an exemption. I'm assuming that the commercial parking would not have a ton of value either, right? It wouldn't, because it's currently a parking lot, it wouldn't really increase the assessed value on its own that much. But if it did, would we be then collecting a little bit more than that 60,000 or 58,500 due to that building of the parking?
Correct. If that portion of the parking is not exempted, we've gone back and forth with Lane County Assessor on this to get some kind of ballpark number on this, and we think that the value of the parking structure might be somewhere in the ballpark of 10% of the value of the overall development. Half that would be about, so 5% of the value of the overall development might be in that half of the parking. And if you pass the resolution as drafted, we'd be collecting on tax on that, yes.
Okay, and so that'd be, a few $1,000s a year above what we are currently collecting for that property. Probably. I know the tax assessor has not assessed it yet, so you can't give me a number, but a little bit more.
Correct.
And then we talked about the $900,000 plus for the moderate income housing. Does that go? So we'd be receiving that like fairly early on in this project. Does that go into a separate fund, or is that, do we just have that in a separate fund somewhere?
Two questions there. It does go into its own separate fund that we use specifically for projects that qualify as moderate income housing. The only time we've collected those funds in the past, that money went to supporting the 1059 Willamette project. Okay. As far as when we collect it, they can choose to either pay up front with a small discount or pay it over years 3 through 10 of the exemption. And we don't put them at this point directly on the hook for which one of those they're going to go with, because these projects tend to value making that choice a little later in the process.
Okay. But we would get that close to $1 million over the next few years. State of the MUPTI. Okay. And then the Gordon is around the same, the building across the street, the Gordon Loft, that's around the same height. Is that right?
Off the top of my head, yes.
Okay. And I think, and we are not beyond the cost of, like, for example, your time to do this review and give this presentation, we're not spending any money. We're not writing a check to the developer or anything like that. We're not spending any money. We're getting this money back, right?
Correct. The city's expenses are mostly just administrative.
Okay. Thank you. Those are my questions.
Councilor Ye.
Thanks, Mayor. I guess I have a comment and a question. I have a really hard time seeing how additional commercial in this retail in this area is a public benefit. I'm wondering if you can tell me how much of the tax whatever, sorry, it's been a long day. How much of that is for the retail space? And if you have a sense of I guess the impact would be it might not be built.
I could see what we've got to answer that on hand here shortly, but I don't have it off the top of my head.
Can you tell me how many MUPTIs we have approved commercial space as part of their MUPT?
I believe just one, Gordon Lofts.
Okay, well, I'll hear what my colleagues have to say. Personally, I don't see that as a public benefit. I think it's really hard to make that argument, especially in that area, but we'll see what people have to say.
I'll add that 1059 Willamette was the other one that got a commercial space exemption.
The other parts of it, the two considerations that we have with the commercial space, part of it is that it supports the overall construction of the building. So there's a part where all of the space in the building is supporting the overall pro forma. And so when you look at the overall pro forma, the dollars all add up at the end to a project that needs a MUPT to move forward per our third-party consultants analysis. The other thing is that one of the, we do look at policy around this, and being a great street as defined in our planning document, the downtown plan, prioritizing an active frontage rather than a parking garage frontage or something like that was something that came forward through the analysis and the review and the panel conversation. So those were a couple of the pieces that went into the consideration on that.
Okay, that first one actually, it does make sense to me. The second one, not so much. I feel like if it had more housing, that would be a benefit. That the retail actually is the opposite of that. But I get what you're saying about how it's all one building, right? So, okay, thank you.
Councillor Leach.
Thank you. Yeah, and there's only two real retail spaces. Am I getting the schematics correct on that? On one on either side?
Correct. At least how they have it drawn up now, it would just be two spaces. I don't know that they'd be stuck with that if they wanted to divide that into 3 or 4.
Okay. I know at one point we had approved a MUPT, correct me if I'm wrong, for the same company in the same location that was a 55 plus community. And their concept at that point was to possibly put in, of course, it's commercial, so you can't guarantee that, but they wanted something like a pharmacy or something like, groceries or something that would be more of a benefit to that neighborhood of missing components in that area. Was that in the considerations at all for this iteration? I know it's changed, but
briefly, that first iteration of their plan for this site, they did apply for MUPT, but that project wasn't going to pencil for them, and they pulled the application before it got all the way through the process. As far as what they might plan on putting in there, they haven't shared any details.
Great. Well, what I know is that the work that they do is highly valued in this area. It's very beautiful. I think it will be incredibly beneficial for the neighborhood. What's right now just a blank, ugly parking lot. We're going to replace all of that parking. We're going to have a beautiful residential building that will support all of those businesses. I'm not doubtful that a couple of retail spots would actually be beneficial when you're bringing in that many more people into that area. And it's, I think that I like that courtyard space. I think it'll be just beautiful, and people will want to live there and to come down. And so I'm looking forward to voting for this as it's written. I support the review panel's recommendations. And thank you for your time and energy on this.
Councillor Evans. Councillor, you're still muted. Still muted.
Mayor?
There you go.
Yeah,
Yes.
I was sorry. I was trying to unmute. FYI for everybody, I do not have a copy of my AIS in front of me. So when we move to the point of making motions, I may need a little bit of help from staff. So just FYI for everybody there, I've got multiple pieces of paper going on right now.
Thank you. Councillor Keating.
Mayor, can I defer to Councilor Groves and come after his comments, please? So
Absolutely. Councilor Groves.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to start off by echoing what Councilor Clark said regarding what a MUPTI is and what a MUPTI is not. I run into people all the time that think we are taking money away from services to pay tax relief, and that just is not the case. If we don't award an MUPTI, we'll never get this additional tax income. If we do, in 10 years, we will be getting sizable additional taxes that will help provide services. I support this. We need more residential space, especially in our downtown area, and for the purposes of this discussion, I'm going to include the Market District. And I also think that adding the mixed use with retail on the first floor is a positive aspect of not only the development, but that entire neighborhood and area. So I do think it's a good idea. This is a chance to take one of our great streets and significantly anchor it with a quality development, which has been proven to be the case from the OB companies. And I'll just stop there in the interest of time, but I support this. Thank you.
And Councilor Keating.
Thank you, Mayor. Looking at the attachments on pages 3, 4, and 12 in particular, I don't see the butte in the picture. Is that because the artist rendition is from the butte, or is it because the building blocks the butte, or is it just not imagining anything around the proposed building?
As far as what the artist intended, I can't be 100% sure, but they certainly didn't go out of their way to illustrate other buildings and features nearby in most of those drawings. But I think it is true that you can see the butte over this building, but you've got to be a pretty good way south down Oak Street for it to appear over the top.
Yeah, the best public benefit, in my opinion, in that geographic area is the butte. I've made this argument in front of this body before, and I'll make it again today. I'd much rather see MUPTI or urban renewal dollars invested along Highway 99 rather than obstructing the views of a cherished local landmark. I'm disturbed that vibrant local businesses like Buffalo Exchange were disrupted. I still have heartburn about the extension of the height limit, the lack of environmental studies around bird migration around the butte. So I'm going to be a no today, Mayor, and I recognize that you're not the artist, so you don't have the artist's intention. But it would be more informative in the future if the views of proposals do include the local landscape and how much they may or may not obstruct said landscape. Thank you.
Councilor Zelenka.
Thanks, Mayor. I think it's a great project. 10% more energy efficient than code. I really like the design. It's interesting. Parking with EV slots and our EV charging. I do recommend that developers add more, at least conduit for EV charging than the minimum. I like that the location, and there's more downtown housing and people downtown. I like that there's 10% going to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund of $900,000 plus $1,000. I like the economic development aspects of it, the 75% local. I really like the setback with the landscaping. That was a big plus. I like the retail over housing part. I think that spaghetti, the Spaghetti Factory going to park.
I'm not sure how many parking spaces are out there on that lot right now, but the bottom floor that will be available to retail customers will have 209 or 109 parking spaces, plus a few more around the back of the garage structure.
So they'll be able to park there for a fee, like they do now, actually.
I'm
Okay,
sure it's
but
a reduction in the overall number of spaces.
Yeah, because the whole lot's parking. So, but they'll be able to park there. So I still remain unconvinced that these projects will not be built without a MUPD. We've never had one apply that was denied. Wonder why. Especially with several examples of similar buildings nearby, and a building that got a MUPD were built without MUPDs within rock throwing distance in some cases. So wonder how that works. So with a budget deficit, a fire fee ask, other things going up, I think this is hard to think of a worse time for a tax exemption giveaway. So because of that, all those reasons, I'm going to be a no vote as well.
And Council, before I go back to Councillor Groves, I think we will need a motion to extend this meeting by somewhere between 5 or 10 minutes.
Move to extend. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Counselor.
I will say second.
Move to extend by 10 minutes.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Little tough on teams. All opposed? Seeing 0, and that motion passes by 8-0. We'll extend our meeting by an additional 10 minutes. And now back to you, Councillor Groves.
Thank you, Mayor. And I will try and make this very quick. This is in response to the concerns about the structure blocking the butte. I'd like to remind my colleagues that have been on council for a while that probably about a year or so ago, or the last time we visited this for the project and approved a MUPD, that photos were shown with lines drawn in of what would be blocked of the butte by this building. And it was surprisingly little. In fact, I remember Councillor Semple, whose ward it was in at the time, commenting how little the obstruction would actually be. So if that jogs anyone's memory, I remember it clearly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Keating.
Thank you, Councillor Groves. Thank you for the input. If memory serves, Councillor Semple and I voted against the proposal in the first place as well. But that's not why I raised my hand for a second round. I'll be ever so brief. I want to apologize to Dylan. Dylan, I called you Will. I'm on my mobile device and couldn't see who was offering the presentation. And your Will Dowdy impression is spot on, audibly. But you are clearly not Will, so my apologies to you, Dylan. I'm ready to vote, Mayor, and I think it's understood where I stand. Thanks.
Thank you. With that, I will now turn
Mayor?
to yes.
No, go ahead. I was going to put forth the motion.
Thank you. Please do, Council President.
Move to adopt a resolution approving a multi-unit property tax exemption for property located at 131 East 5th Avenue, attached as attachment B to the AIS.
Second.
Any further discussion from council? We're now all very small on my screen, but seeing none, I will now take a vote for this motion. All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 votes in favor. All opposed? 1, 2 votes opposed, and the motion passes with a vote of 6-2. Thank you all.
Mayor, who were the no votes? Who were the no votes on?
The 2 no votes were Councillors Linka and Councillor Keating.
Thank you.
Thank you all. This concludes our agenda item for today and our time in our meeting today. Thank you all for being adaptive. Thank you again to council, to staff for all of your work to get council into a meeting together today, despite global outages of our usual technological supports. So with that, I will say that we are going to bring our work session to an end. That concludes our agenda, and I will close the April 16th, 2025 City Council work session. We are adjourned.
Can
Thank
we
you all
have to
very
stay
much.
here for 7 more minutes?